that, and we're glad to have you here this morning to talk about the impact of poverty on African Americans. But before we start that, Dr. Sanford, let's see if we can talk about Dr. EKSanford, to have you to give us some statements in reference to your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And then at the end of this first segment, we'll come back and we'll start dealing with the impact of poverty on African Americans. Let's see if we can do it from that perspective.
Okay, and thank you very much. It's always a delight to be here. As you've already noted, I'm EKSanford, professor of sociology at Tennessee State University. I did my educational postdoc experience at the Penn State University in State College, Pennsylvania. Proud to say I did my doctorate degree at Howard University in Washington, D.C. While there, I had some wonderful experiences that I think will contribute to this morning's conversation. I worked at the national headquarters of the American Red Cross doing evaluation research in HIV/AIDS and education, which I've also contributed to here in Nashville, Tennessee, Davidson County, on that same project with Meharry Medical Center. Also, I worked at the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives while I was working on my doctorate degree as well. I did my undergraduate degree at North Carolina Central University, where I'm originally from, of Oxford, North Carolina, and also at UNC in Chapel Hill, where I'm very proud to have had that experience as well. And then, as you just mentioned, I'm a professor of sociology at Tennessee State University, and I've been there for, I guess, close to 20 years now. Yeah.
And with a lot of information, Dr. Sanford, I must say up front that you've got so much information, and you've done so well in terms of distributing that information and encouraging others to follow some of the information that you've given us. And so I just want you to know that up front.
Yes.
Let's see if we can start talking to, make some statements in reference to this idea of poverty and the impact of poverty on African Americans.
Okay, I'm gratefully. I would like to try to mention an observation of a piece that I've just been working on sociologically, a colleague of mine this summer, on obesity rates among African Americans. As you may very well know, throughout the United States and the South, the obesity problem is a huge issue and concern. Over $147 billion is spent each year with regard to obesity rates. That rate is disproportionate to African Americans, and what we found in our research that is disproportionate in relation to poverty. Low income people have a tendency to have to eat a lot of trans fats, dietary types of habits that are not totally healthy for you but are more filling. And this has been a problem. But I would like to try to place it into a historical context of 1619 of slavery for 244 years leading up to the present, where these types of things have become very cultural. In many instances, some of the dietary habits that might be very present within the culture of the African American experience are linked to that earlier time period. We endearingly may refer to it as soul food, and many of that type of dietary habits now we found contributors to some of the poor health that is present. So from that earlier time period of slavery to hundreds of years leading through Jim Crow laws and segregation, we found issues of poverty that has led a group of people making up 12% of the population still today, largely into a cultural poverty, I might say, that have brought about certain contributing factors that might be related to health and wellness in a very negative way. Now, interestingly, in our research, we found that, unfortunately, not only is it for the low income members of the African American community, but in many instances, even in the middle class and upper middle class and upper class of the African American experience. Why? Because it's related to culture and eating habits and dietary habits. And so some of the foods that are endearing to that particular community, people may still indulge in it in large and disproportionate proportions. So we find hypertension, high blood pressure, issues such as heart attacks, diabetes, that are larger part of society is still disproportionate to the African American community based on poverty.
And of course, I think that what we'll do now is to make preparations for this first commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up at this point, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.